Hello folks, were you pulling for Sela but got Yanqing instead? Well, don't be sad. Yanqing is still a super strong DPS and can actually be better than Sela. He has so much crit rate and high chance to freeze enemies without needing to break them. And freeze is one of the best debuffs since it can make the enemy skip an entire turn. The simulated world is a perfect example. Yanqing can permafreeze enemies and even bosses with the right build and blessings. Just look at me here. I'm getting all these free attacks and turns against a defenseless boss. So, how do you use Yanqing effectively? Let's take a look at how his kit works. His skill does ice damage to one target and gives him a stack of Soul Steel Sync. That buff is what makes Yanqing a secret nuke. The description of this buff is very long, but I'll break it down. The buff decreases his aggro, gives him extra crit, and has a 50% chance to do extra ice damage, and this extra ice damage can freeze enemies. This buff only lasts one turn or until he gets hit, so the best combo is to always use his skill first, then his ult. Even if you have the ult fully charged, never use it without the Soul Sync buff. Why do you want to wait? Because the ult gets even stronger with Soul Sync. Normally, his ult only has a high crit chance, but with Soul Sync, he gets extra crit damage. With all these crit buffs, Yanqing is going to pretty much always crit with his heavy damage ult, and has a chance to freeze enemies at the same time. And his overworld technique is one of the best in the game. It gives you a 30% damage buff on high HP enemies, and they will always be at high health at the start of battle. But it's a buff and not an attack. So that means you can use this buff, then switch to another character for better element engagement. And for teams, you want someone from Destruction or Preservation to tank, and a healer. The last slot is quite flexible and can be used to fill in elemental weaknesses. If you don't need extra element coverage, then go with anyone from the Harmony path for some sweet buffs, or Pella for some ice synergy. Not only can Pella decrease enemy defense, but she can later reduce ice resistance and increase your chance to freeze enemies. And if these recommendations for the flex slot does not suit your style, then add another DPS to help clear the board. His traces are pretty useful too. The Ascension 2 passive does extra damage to ice weak enemies. Add this together with the extra ice damage procs and you have the best icebreaker in the game. The follow-up ice damage not only gives you more energy for your ult, but it also reduces more toughness. This is a very strong first passive. His Ascension 4 helps him take reduced crowd control, but it's not that useful. You lose the Soul Sync buff from getting hit anyways. And his A6 is actually godlike. This pretty much gives him a permanent 10% speed buff, and speed is king in Honkai Star Rail. His best free-to-play light cone is the signature one, River Flows in Spring. It adds speed and damage until you get hit. But if you pair this together with the lower aggro from Soul Sync, then you'll rarely lose this sweet damage buff. Another very good free-to-play light cone is Swordplay. If you attack the same target, you get a nice damage buff. And remember Yanqing's bonus ice follow-up? If that procs, you can almost get 5 stacks of this passive in one attack. Theoretically, Yanqing can make better use of this weapon than Shushang. And for those lucky enough to get the 5-star light cones, both Sleep Like the Dead and In the Night are equally strong. They both give crit damage and crit rate. If you're lucky to have both weapons, then use In the Night since that has a higher damage ceiling with higher speeds. For Relics, the Hunter set is best in slot. It increases ice and crit damage, the perfect stats for Yanqing and his naturally high crit rate. For the ornaments, the crit rate is best in slot. When his crit rate is above 50%, his ult and follow-up attack does more damage. And remember, he gets a bonus 60% crit rate from his ult, so this passive will always be active for every single ult he does. So long story short, if you got Yanqing, don't be sad, be glad. He's actually very good and I am super happy to have him on my team. If you like what you see, then please subscribe and let me know how you're liking the game down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, have fun out there, Trailblazer.